All right. All right, Kathy. I'm so happy to have you today. This is a little bit different of a format than probably you've done in the past. I like to have these group validation calls so we can kind of go through a lot of the questions that franchisees or candidates ask throughout the process of the discovery process. And so I thought, what a greater or great thing to have you on. You started a new studio about 5 years ago. You're in Magnolia, Texas. So I'm going to let you introduce yourself and maybe just talk to us a little bit about what you were doing prior to SpeedPro.
Okay. Hi, everybody. First of all, I want to apologize because my laptop open here, but my screen is actually over here. So I keep looking over at the screen, but it's just distracting. I'm sorry. When I started out, I was in oil and gas. I did that for about 17 years. And being in the oil and gas field, it kind of goes up and down and up and down. So I'd kind of experienced a lot of it. And the last time I just decided, I want to do something else. I was a late bloomer, so I'd just gone to college. I was getting ready to graduate, in fact, in 2018. And so it was several months before I was supposed to graduate, and I knew I wasn't going to have a job. And so I started researching franchises. I really thought I wanted to get into franchising. We had an opportunity, Brian's family business, my husband's family business in San Antonio. We could have gone back and taken over that again, but I wanted to do something new. And so I started researching. That's what I was taught. Somebody has a good model out there, just find it. And return on my investment was a very big deal. So I really, wanted the most bang for my buck. And then what was affordable, what was in my price range of what I could afford to do. And all those things, printing industry just kept coming back in, different franchises and stuff, but that was one of the ones that I was kind of narrowed down to. And I think the final straw was, once you kind of talk to all of them, it was the family atmosphere. We knew it was going to kind of be a family business, me and my husband, and we had 3 children. We didn't know if any of them would be involved or want to be involved. But we've always known. I mean, he had family business. I came from family business. So we wanted to have a family business feel, and it's a franchise. So you've got to find that. And that's what we found. When we found SpeedPro, it just seemed from the other franchises that we checked out that SpeedPro was the family route. And so we kind of just went that direction.
And what was it about the industry that kept pulling you back in? Because I
It
hear
was the
that a
return.
lot.
Yeah, it's the return on the investment. Okay, the markups were very lucrative. We kept thinking we were going to be in fast food. Why I thought we were going to be in fast food, I don't know. They were very much more expensive, and they weren't. The return on the investment was just not there as much as the printing industry. And being that I didn't know anything about, I knew about oil and gas and I knew about business administration and that kind of stuff. I didn't know anything about printing. And it seemed like one of the ones that was really, going to help you understand, give you some background. They had training, and it was always prominent that they had this training. And so I kept thinking, I can learn to do anything. And so this training might be, the avenue we need to go in. That's the direction we went. So.
Okay, so you made your decision. You signed the agreement. Talk to us about that initial support that you received in finding a location and that training that you did receive.
Yeah. Well, it was right away. I mean, we came in right during like a convention time. So we actually got to kind of experience a convention. And first of all, just seeing that, we were looking for the family, and then we saw the family because we saw how all the owners had gotten together and how supportive they were of everybody. And people just, I mean, even though we hadn't actually purchased, they were already talking like, oh, well, in a couple of years when we see you, this is what you're going to be interested in. That's what you're going to be interested in, looking at the numbers and that. And, it was a way to kind of check, is the return on the investment, actually what it is. And then of course we did these calls. So we had talked to other owners. When we made that decision, and it was actually SpeedPro, then we had someone from corporate that was down, that they met with us and to make sure we were the right fit as well. And they immediately, they were all about selling, which I said, I don't do that. Like, I don't sell. Like, I won't be doing that part. I'm sure that I have family that's going to do that, or my husband will do that, but that I won't be doing that. But I didn't have any idea what that was. And he looked at me and said, well, yeah, you're going to need to do that. And so I thought, well, how? And they said, you start out by networking. Well, what's that? I didn't even know what networking was. And so they just pointed me in the right direction, go join your chamber, join some networking groups. And then, we knew we were going to have to learn the machines and product and that kind of stuff. But it was the channels that, go find a place, where do you want to be? We had several zip codes we could be in. So we were, are we going to be SpeedPro Magnolia? Are we going to be SpeedPro Tomball or Conroe? All of that was very exciting. It wasn't something I had ever done. But every time I ever had a question about anything, and even when it did come down to products, you just hop on that, ask the owners. And every time I've ever had an issue, they're there to say they've had that issue and here's how you solve those problems. And you get it from every, a bunch of different sources, a bunch of different dynamics are coming in. And it's really it was easy to navigate. So I enjoyed that part of it. I still don't know, I can turn on a machine. So I don't know exactly how to run those machines, but I know the products of the machines. I know my guys know the stuff that they need to know, and I've learned how to sell.
And I've had the opportunity to see your location, which is beautiful. And I mean, it's what a studio should look like. So I just want to clarify. So Kathy brought up Ask the Owners. That's an email address that our owners go back and forth with each other. There's actually a production one as well. So your production people can ask other production people. But the Ask the Owners is just another layer of support that our franchisees receive. All right, I want to talk about how long did it take you to learn the product mix? Because again, you came from oil and gas. How long did it take you to learn the product mix? And I realize, what I tell people, Kathy, is you got to say yes to everything in that first year. You got to learn how to quote it, right? How to price it, how to start the project, how to finish the project. After the first year, then you can pump the brakes on certain jobs because they're not as profitable. But how did you handle that, and how long did that take you to learn? And I talked to an owner the other day, and he's like, I'm still learning. I'm 10 years in. But talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, that's the first thing I was going to say is you learn something every day. You're constantly learning. It wasn't that difficult. It wasn't rocket science or anything. And I wasn't, I was in administration. I started out as a billing clerk and I left as a vice president. So I moved up in that sense. Never, like I said, I didn't know what networking was. I didn't have to go out and sell. I was literally doing administrative stuff and running a company. I wasn't worried about getting those customers in. And so I would say maybe 6 months. My big thing was, how am I going to go and answer these when I don't have, someone's going to say, how much is this? And I don't even know what that is. And the best thing about it was them to kind of and this was part of the sales stuff that they did, was kind of teaching you just take a pen and a piece of paper, and everyone, when they ask you and you don't have the answer, it was like, wow, what a great question. I don't even know that. Let me see what I can find out for you and I'll get back to you. And I would take information that way. So I learned that I didn't have to know everything about all the products, but I could get back to them with, and always put it on to, wow, I don't even know that. Let me check that out. And then I'm learning that I'm coming back and I'm asking, hey, core class signs and max metal. I literally got the guys to make me cheat sheets and stuff like that eventually so that I could go out and do that. But I would say for me, maybe 6 months or so, I was starting to feel pretty comfortable about just being able to answer anything. Even if I didn't have the answers, I knew I could get the answers. And it didn't take too long to kind of learn, what coroplast was versus max metal versus, IJ 180. I don't even know all the names of everything, but I know that if I have a question, I call the guys here. It didn't take them long to learn everything. And we actually, one of our employees that came on, and we've had the same 4 employees since we opened the door. So we've not changed employees. That's been really nice. But he came from another sign company. And so he had worked with Corebridge, and he was a big help in, making sure that we knew what we were doing. And he's still here, so that's helpful.
I think I always stress that to folks. If you can find somebody with experience in this industry, it really helps, especially in the beginning for starting brand new. Um, and you also brought up a good point. You know, I was talking to somebody earlier today, and they were talking about, well, I could probably do this myself. Like, you probably can, but to your point, you know, in the first 6 months, if you have a question about product mix, pricing, it's not like you could call a sign company down the street and say, "What would you charge for this?" They're going to say, "Get out of here, your competition." So you
Yeah.
have that support from not only the franchisees but the corporate office. All right, let's talk real quick. And I don't know the answer to this, so I'm going to ask: did you utilize the Buddy Studio program at all? And can you just talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So that was probably where we got a lot of really, really good training, both Mike Shard from the Woodland Studio, and it was Larry Perez at the time with North Houston. Both of those men opened their studios and let us come in and let our help come in. So I understand now how it was valuable help to them because they were getting this extra help. Um, but we didn't know what we were doing. And so it could have been disastrous for them, but they opened their doors, and I literally spent, I remember like 2 full weeks, just like an employee at North Houston. And I, got there when the employees got there in the morning, and I did everything that they did all day long for 2 weeks straight. Brought my son in, who was going to be helping to make sure we could work well together. These guys, I didn't take enough advantage. They were all willing to help, but I didn't utilize that as much. So like starting, I was afraid to take jobs. I was afraid to get work because how are we going to do it? And then Mike Shard at the Woodlands, every time we got anything that needed to be printed, he printed it. And if it was something he couldn't do, then Larry did it. Larry was just a little bit further away. So Mike really helped us. Mike introduced us to people in our chamber that we're very involved with today. And we all three have done work for each other, and we've all had a printer down at some point and had needed somebody else to do something. We're very much buddies. In fact, we just had an article written up about us in a magazine, and I talked, and they named Mike a couple of times because in our city they know the Woodlands, and so it was nice to partner that up and to show that we work together here, and it was a really nice thing for them to do. And at the same time, I appreciated it because if it hadn't been for these guys, I don't know how successful we would have been in the networking scene and all that, because they really kind of pushed us in those directions of where we needed to go. Buddy Studio pricing was really nice because they lowered their prices even below wholesale, so that we could still make a little bit of money before we were actually having to pay rent. That's nice.
And that's I think that's a really positive attribute about joining SpeedPro is while you're looking for a site, while you're going through the construction of the site, you can start selling and building up your customer base. And I think it's a really valuable tool that a lot of our franchisees utilize. All right, you mentioned working together. A lot of the people that are going to be listening to this, or they're on the call right now, there are nearby studios. Can you talk to us, just because you've got your finger on the pulse of the network, about the relationship between nearby studios? Because I came from my previous employer, the franchisees were competing against one another because their territories were so small. Our territories are double the size of our competition. Talk to us a little bit about the relationship. I know you already did, but typically, how is the relationship with studios nearby?
Well, I'll tell you this. I looked at different things, and I just tried to think. I figured out that there's 5 sign companies within our local area right here that aren't SpeedPro, but 5 other ones that are fairly close. They all have immediate competition with their own brand. So they all have studios within a mile of where they are. That is also, like we have Signorama and Image 360. Both of them have Buddy Studios very, very close to where they're competition for each other. And they've said it. And you can see where they're not really happy about that. But at the same time, they are all friendly. I mean, we all know. But out of those 5 sign companies, we do business with all of them. Every one of those sign companies comes and does business with us, mainly because we have a Colex, so we're able to do the cutting. So we're not doing their printing and we're not doing their wraps and stuff, but we are doing their cutting. And so anytime they're advertising that custom cutting and we're all parts of the same chamber and stuff like that, people will go, "Oh, that's like the SpeedPro." And they don't bother to say, "Yeah, that's where we're getting it done." And we don't tell that that's where. But we have really good relationships with them. We have weather issues here. And so we have had studios that have flooded. We have lightning storms that come and they'll just shut somebody down. And when that happens, I mean, we had another sign company that for a month during COVID produced work out of the employee came to our place because they didn't have anywhere else to do the work. They are our competition because they're a sign company, but they're not really our competition because there's no competition for us. They do a lot of real estate stuff. And so they've got kind of that market cornered, and we just do a little bit of that kind of stuff. So they literally produced work. But then when we had a problem and we needed something that day, they were right there to say, hey, you helped us out. Can you, bring it over? We'll do it. We're noticing that with other sign companies besides SpeedPro. Our SpeedPro ones, those are the ones we're going to first. These guys, I would call them all our friends. They're definitely not in competition with each other, and definitely there to help out. And, you never want it to happen, but, we run out of ink. It's never supposed to happen, but that'll happen. Or we run out of piece of material. Someone call at the last minute, they need something. When you have buddy studios that close, they're willing, we've gone and picked up material from Mike and, had it delivered back to him the following week. It's that aspect was, that was something that factored into what I was going to do, because we got to go and meet these guys and stuff before we made all of the final decisions on things. And, those guys kind of closed the things when we realized that they were willing to help, and they weren't like, oh, another SpeedPro. They were like, oh, great. Another SpeedPro. How can we help? And I think that's because we're never close enough to each other to cause that animosity, like some of the other sign companies that come in and tell us that, they wish this place, was a little bit further away.
Sure.
And we hear it from both because both of them are doing business with us. So,
yeah, I like to think of everybody as a strategic partnership. And, and if you go into it as competition, you're going to have that. You're going to come across as competition. All right, let's talk real quick. I got like 4 more questions. So again, if you're on a call and you want to listen, and you want to ask a question, please type in your question. You've been in business for 5 years now?
Yeah, I think almost 6.
Almost 6.
We bought in 2017, but we didn't open our doors till 2018 because we dealt with a hurricane.
Right. And then fast forward 2 years later, you had the pandemic. Yeah. How did you handle those ups and downs? That's a lot to deal with.
Yeah. For us, I think that's a lot when it changed for Brian and I, who were in here every day. This was just kind of we were all here all the time. We had to change that. We couldn't all be here at the same time. And so we started shifts. We were very much, people were having signs printed about closures. There was a lot of the floor graphics that were going in about the 6 feet apart and all that. So we were staying busy, but we had to shift because those were the things, but there was nothing else going on. And so label people, were having trouble getting the access chain, the supply chain, were breaking down, so they couldn't get their labels. Well, normally we don't make those smaller labels, but Carla Jean, in Sugarland got a job and she couldn't fulfill it. It was like 30,000 labels and so much. So she, reached out to the other SpeedPros around, and we all got a little part of doing those labels. And it really saved us, like the first month they were there. I would say we were only kind of struggled for about 3 months with things, and things, I was networking again by August of 2020. We were just in a kind of a unique bubble out here where everyone just stayed open and started. It slowed down. We didn't lose like a lot that year, but we just kind of stayed even. And there were some months where, it was just really scary, but people kind of banded together, and you have to shift. You had to look for those other things, and so much is coming. This is the first year that we're really seeing everything's coming back like full force. Whereas last year was still a little bit, slow. It's scary, you have to kind of budget your things during that time, but we made it work. And me and Brian kind of took a back seat, and we needed to keep our guys working. And so we took a lot of afternoons off and, cruised in our golf cart and drank margaritas. It was really nice.
All right. Well, okay. I want to talk about your day in the life, because you kind of touched on it. Talk to us about your day in the life, maybe in the beginning versus where you are right now.
Right. In the beginning, I would say we came in, our hours are 8:30 to 5, and we were usually here between 8 and 8:30. and kind of just got the guys going. What do we have going on today? And then we were at networking things, and we split our time because there was two of us, me and Brian, where I did chamber things and he did like networking things. All day, every day it was out, beating the concrete, meeting with people, really kind of whining and dining at all the free events that we could go to and passing out our card. The chamber for us, and I know it's not always great for everybody, but for some reason, we hit it off really good with the chamber. They needed some volunteer people. We volunteered. And that first year, there was not, we weren't open. So we were just doing these volunteering and going to these networks. When we actually opened the doors, we came in here. The guys didn't have a lot going on. There was lots of times where I just felt like our one employee, Jamie, that was outside of the family, was just going to say, there's nothing to do. But at 9 months, we were at break even at 9 months. So it really went fast. Once we opened those doors and started going, we just networked. They did that. Now I would say sometimes we don't get in here until 9:30 in the morning. If we have networking stuff to do in the morning, a coffee or breakfast, we'll go do that. But now we come in, we check, what are you guys doing? What do you need? There's deliveries all the time. We like making deliveries. We are going and visiting our customers. So we load up our car and we'll go make some deliveries and talk to those people that we're making those, kind of schmooze a little bit. Very different now than it was then. Then it was every day, all day, as much as we could. Fast forward 5 years later, and after COVID, and we just have taken more of a back seat and let the guys do all the hard work. And I feel like, for me, I feel like it's fun. Like I'm out, I'm very, very involved in the chamber. So I do a lot of stuff with, I'm the chairman of the board of our chamber now. And so that takes up a lot of my time, and they're hiring people and stuff. So I'm not always watching what's going on here. But that's the good thing about it, is it's going on when there's issues, I know, and then I'm in here and we're talking about them. That just rarely happens.
Yeah, and I think you hit it on the head. You put your time in the beginning, shaking hands, kissing babies, going to the networking events, the chamber events. Now you're getting referrals from the networking that you did. And talk to us about the online pay-per-click. How is that working? And
yeah, we I don't know why, because we have a local person that does our marketing. She does all my Facebook and stuff like that. So I'm paying a fee for her to do the stuff that I don't have time to get on and do Facebooking and all that kind of stuff. And so I don't know why we just didn't really look into that pay-per-click for the longest time. And now I'm really disappointed because I don't know that we've even been on it for a year yet. But it was very noticeable. We started it and immediately we started getting more business. Different business, things that we weren't getting, calls that we weren't getting before. And so it's been very, very helpful to have that pay-per-click. Now, there is a lot of, there are people, personal vehicles, for some reason, that's gotten to be a really big thing, and people are calling in and wanting their personal vehicle, and we won't touch a personal vehicle, but our installers will. And so the two installers that will do that, we always tell them, we don't do that. We do have an installer. Would you like his information? And then we refer them over there. But other than those kind of wrap calls, we've gotten, we've picked up some fleet wraps, a pool company that I don't think we would have gotten had we not been doing pay-per-click. And now we're doing 2 vans a week for them for like the next 6 months. That was very, very nice. Just the people that are calling sometimes have more questions and like that. And that's where we get to get involved. Whereas, normally the guys, they're trying to work. We don't try to make them answer those questions and answer those emails and stuff. It's been good. We've enjoyed it. So.
All right. Yeah. So Kathy, this is the part of the interview. I like to bring up projects, and thank you for submitting these to me. If you could just talk to us about, because there's still a lot of questions for a lot of folks, like what's large and wide format printing, so how did this job come to you? How did you create it? If you want to share pricing, that's up to you, but just talk to us a little bit about this project.
Yeah, I think this was an 800, right in the $800 range. It's a Max Metal sign. It's just white. It's metal. I guess it's kind of like a foam or something in the middle, but it's just a hard white surface. She gave us the art. She already had it. It's a restaurant that's down the road from us. And what happened was the people that owned it was called Victory Pie Company. And we did all of their sign work. When we first opened, they were first opening. And so we made some like a pie shaped sign and some different things for them. And we always put our little sticker on the back, so that when it comes down someday, it's still legible, they will know. And when they were taking the signs down, actually the people over there let them know too, but she said she got the number from the back of the sign and could we make her one? And she just asked for a quote, and we gave her the quote, and now it's sitting up. It's like a 6 foot long, I think it's like 5 tall, and it's sitting on a metal building down the road from us. So, and we got that from, really just a referral and from us making sure. We didn't know in the beginning to even put our name on things. We learned that in market, and networking and stuff like that, that when we're sponsoring something, that we don't actually have to write a check. We can say, oh, we'll give you $200 in signs, and anything more than that we'll charge you for. And then they let us put our name on everything. So now our name is out there and we're not writing a check, and they're usually getting more than the $200 that we've quoted them. And so those were things that we didn't know about that we learned. Making things like this. This is a mom and pop shop too. So it's nice that the local people are trying to use the local people.
That's great. And I think that's great advice too. I mean, putting, I'm going to share one more. Is there one that you prefer? I'm going to bring up the Christmas card. I think that's really cool.
Yeah. So.
Okay.
I know it's really hard. It's hard to tell.
Real quick, Kathy, I do think it's great advice for everybody on the call. Putting it's just a sticker with your studio name, your phone number, maybe contact info. I mean, it's pretty simple, but I hear it works all the time though.
Yeah. We get a lot of referrals that way from people that have just left signs out somewhere and it's got our name on it. These, believe it or not, these were Christmas cards. These are like 10 foot tall cards. And they were each a piece of material. So we used a full sheet of, I'm thinking it was, like a foam core, but it was like a harder surface than the foam core. So maybe like, I don't know, some kind of a PVC on top. But this is a church, and this is a mega church. So they do a lot of work. And this was one of the mega churches when we first opened our doors. Someone told us, yeah, it's great, you can do stuff for them, but you'll never land this account because they're really big and they use, I don't know where they said that they were getting their stuff, but they told us we would never land this account. We've landed them and a couple of other ones. It took a couple of years, but just little things. And when they get in a bind and they need help and you're there to help, it was just great. And eventually we got all of their work, and now they leave references for us on Google and stuff. And it's a really nice thing because it's the Woodlands Church. So it's a really big deal. And they made these art cards, but people at Christmas time went and stood in front of these cards, including us, and had their pictures and stuff taken. And after we made these cards, then we had a few people that said, wow, that would be so cool to put a huge card in my yard at Christmas time. And so at Christmas time, we now get several of these where we're putting these big cards in people's yards. And it's usually at Christmas, they personalize it. Some of them have their own pictures on them and stuff. And it's neat to start something and do something that so many people get a chance to see, and then you get business from that. So this is a really good, and we like the fact that we do a lot of work for the Woodlands Church now, and it's a good job to have.
And this is pretty much, you can produce all of this in-house. I mean,
yeah, we did this just right on our flatbed, just printed. I mean, they sent us artwork and we just printed it up and delivered it. They put it together. They used, they really open and close. I'm not sure what the closures were they used on the back, but they put them all together. A lot of times if we're doing them in someone's yard or something like that, we'll help them put them together. But we have installers that do that. I say it's the people that they're, working for us. So.
Yeah, and I love the fact that, this type of job just kind of sells itself. And, it's really cool. I mean, That's the one thing too about this business. It's very gratifying because you're helping solve a problem, and then it's ultimately helping you get more referrals. All right, I'm going to move on to the next one because I think this makes sense to go over, just because vehicle graphics are pretty
Yeah.
popular in what we do. And so go ahead and talk about this one.
Well, interesting enough, Fully Promoted is part of Sinorama. So when Fully Promoted needed their vehicle wrapped, um, they came to us naturally, and not the Sinorama. I think it was price wise, we were just more accommodating, but they had seen the work, and she wanted to come here, and I met her through the chamber. Um, but they had this vehicle rack, but then other Fully Promoteds that were in the Houston area came to us, and every opportunity she got, because she was a company that promoted, she does the small format printing, small, the promotional products and things like that, that anytime anyone walked in their door, and they're a couple miles down the road from us, but they're constantly sending people down here to us. And when people see their vehicle wrap and stuff, and then they have a sign company, they could send them to Sinorama, that's part of their franchise, and they don't, they send them to us. And so I always like putting Kim's stuff out there because, she's like, I know, she goes, I know the difference, so I'm going to use you. And I don't know the background of all of their stuff, but I know that for us to have done, and then to go to when you go to the networking event and you have another sign company or promotional company that's kind of recommending you, it just makes you feel really good. So
Yeah, I mean, us being a non-retail, I think that really does help with our overhead.
yeah,
So we can get into pricing. We
when
can
it's
lower the
easy to
price.
refer. Yeah, it's easy to refer someone, like, oh, we don't do that, but here's this company down here that does. So it was a nice
All right.
partnership.
All right. I'm going to ask a few more questions, but again, if you do have questions, I do have one question, but I'll answer that offline. Um, Talk to us about what you would have done differently if you could do it all over again. And I'm not going to answer this for you, Kathy, but some people say, I wish I was in a bigger location. Some people wish they would have hired someone differently, but I feel like you're in a pretty good position. Your location's good. You still have the same staff.
There's two things that I always think about that I would have done very differently. Number one, I wish I had done it 10 years sooner. I wished I hadn't wasted the time that I wasted, but I didn't know I was wasting it. So I guess it doesn't really count. But every time it's like, I wished I would have loved to have been doing this 10 years sooner. So that's the first thing. The other thing is like, I've already touched on it a bit. I did not take advantage enough of my buddy studios and producing the work and actually getting those customers and doing the work for them. I kept trying to say, we're going to be open here and we can start here. And once I took that first job and Mike produced it, and it was like a food company. So like a big catering company, they sell food. It was like a Cisco, but it wasn't Cisco, but a big company like that. And they had me make huge banners, and Mike did all of the stuff. And all of a sudden we had this check. We didn't have any rent to pay. We didn't have any bills to pay. We really didn't have employees then. It was just me and Brian doing stuff. And I just wish that I had done that from day one. Like Mike would have easily, and if Mike got overwhelmed, then, we had Larry there that was willing to produce our work. So had I gone out and gotten those jobs, I feel like we could have built up our bank account. And when we actually opened our doors, felt a little bit more secure because now we're paying rent. Now we have a little bit backed up. And I would think I was too afraid. So I would tell anyone, don't be afraid. Even if you don't know the product, don't be afraid to go out and have, because those other owners know, and they'll do it, and they'll tell you what can be done, and they'll tell you if you can't do it. And, it helps them, it's not like, Mike was always making a little bit of something off of what we were doing. But I was afraid to take advantage of that. And now looking back, that's the one thing besides doing it sooner that I would have definitely taken more advantage of.
Yeah, and the one bit of advice I would give everybody too is your equipment needs to run on a consistent basis. So you're right, you should have asked, but it is what it is, and I just want everybody to be comfortable with asking other owners to help you out, because they will. And that's what intrigues me the most about SpeedPro and the network. I don't, yeah, you've got 125, 126 locations. I look at us as having almost over 200 locations because our territories are so big.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of great things happening with new studio development this year. All right, let's go to the next one. So has SpeedPro met your financial expectations? You don't have to go in specifics, Kathy, but whatever you want to share, I think everybody on this call would appreciate it.
I literally had gotten laid off before I opened it. So I had said to my husband, you don't mind if I take everything we have, all the money and everything, and sink it all into this one. And if we don't, like, we might end up, on the streets, but you don't mind if I do this, right? And I mean, his attitude was like, you know what, I know that we got this, and so yeah, you can take the money and do this. I think I was worried a few times. I think maybe the first few months, we had like free rent the first month, maybe the second month. But when things started kicking in, we had to pay, and I'm watching the bank account kind of go down. I was concerned and I was worried, will we make it? And I'm not saying that we didn't have to. I mean, we had money backed up. So we loaned ourselves, a couple of times, a little bit. And we were prepared to do it, but it was like, gosh, how many times do we have to do this? And it seems like it flipped so quick that I can't even put my finger on when it actually flipped. But then once we broke even, we were making all of that, then it was, okay, are we going to pay ourselves? Do we need to pay ourselves? We wanted to pay our guys. That was really important. And it always has been that we pay our guys. We kind of held back on paying ourselves so much. We just kind of ran our business and did the things that we needed to do. Now it's to the point where we should probably be paying ourselves even more. We're not, but we could be. My big thing is, like, I want to make sure my guys are taken care of. And of course, one of them is my son. So, that's a given, but they're the ones that are important to me. And we have 4 employees and we don't need 4 employees. We could easily do it on 3, and we could probably do it on 2. These guys spend half the time here alone. So, that's just extra. We're I would say they haven't gone over, like, we were in oil and gas and we had all of this extra to spend on. We don't, but I think it's because we're more cautious right now. We're watching it slowly build up and it's like, you want to go in and take it, but we're just, we have a plan. And so is it meeting more than meeting our goals? We've not struggled, I would say, at all. I feel like we've done better, but I think I changed my habits of what we used to do than we're happier now than, we have ever been. I would not change. The only thing I would change about it, like I said, is I would have wished I had done it sooner. I think we would have been, way happier right now.
There's not a lot of businesses where you can watch your granddaughter or grandson, right? And
she's here today. Have you heard her?
Yeah,
she's in the background.
I just remember her from when I visited, and that's the coolest thing. I've been into studios; they have their dogs there, and so and this business will emulate the owner. This is not a cookie cutter franchise. And all right, I want to be all right. One more question. All right. Are there any points that you would like to make that maybe we haven't discussed today, or maybe something that the candidate should consider before? And I want to take a third level to that. What gave you the strength and confidence to sign on that agreement? Because that's what everybody right now, I think everybody's like sold on SpeedPro and they're excited about SpeedPro, but signing on that dotted line, Kathy, that's scary.
It's got to be the scary thing. I mean, for us, we knew our credit, we knew we were going to have to get SBA loans. We knew, we had a few areas where we could fall back. I mean, it wasn't like, I told him, and I really felt this way, and I don't know that if it had gone that other direction that we would have been able to, but I always felt like, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. We might lose our house. We might lose all, but you know what? We've started over before, so we could do that again if we had to do it. So I was prepared and maybe just having that skin in the game and knowing like we really couldn't fail, like we could, but we couldn't. And so I think having that attitude of it's going to take some work, and we were old, we're not young anymore. Like, so I've just felt like, I mean, I did feel like in business wise, I mean, I had 17 years with the company that I thought I was going to retire with, and then all of a sudden I have no job. And I didn't want to ever be in that situation again, or if I was, I wanted to make sure that it was my own doing and that it wasn't somebody else. Like, you can be in charge of your own. And like I said, there was times when it came up that I'm like, oh, are we going to have to, borrow? Is it going to be this? But it's cyclical in the sense that it flipped from 1 month to the next. And, you get out there, like we're with the chamber, we're meeting a lot of new businesses. So a lot of those businesses are just starting. They usually need a sign or something in the beginning, but they don't always need, continual work. It was finding the continual customers, and going to people that needed things that we knew were going to just be going on. Finding those customers and getting some of those steady people in, I think made a big difference. It's scary. It is. I mean, signing on that line, I knew what I was, I knew that maybe it wasn't going to work, but it was enough support. And I was already, like I said, feeling that support, that I thought, you know what, I can do that. I can do this. We can do this. And I would say it's probably not been me as much as it's been everybody, my son, my husband, Jamie. Those are the guys that I feel like what I've been doing is fun. Like, I got to join the chamber. Now I'm involved. I do all this stuff. I'm going to the Capitol and being recognized on the floor. I mean, there's all these things that I'm doing. These are fun things for me. These guys are the ones that are in here working every single day, and they don't have a lot of complaints. And I mean, every once in a while, Jamie, sat down with us a couple months ago and said, look, I'm just not making it with what I'm making. I need to make more money. And we said, okay, can you bring us in 2 new customers, like between this time and this, and let's get this, let's give you something. And sure enough, that happened. And he's starts exact today, day 1 of his new pay raise. But those are all things like we all, it's like we help each other out. And I think sometimes, even if it's not family, you've got to be willing to kind of what is everyone's situation? How do we make this work? And it's scary, But
I want to touch on something, because you hit on it, and I was going to talk about it and then I forgot. But everybody on this call, you're building something to provide yourself with an exit strategy at the very end. And so while this business is paying, your salaries and supporting your lifestyle, a job's not, yes, a job can do that, but you can't sell that job. And, when you're ready to retire, it's just not how it works. And you might have a 401k, but you can't control your 401k. It's, it's the market. And so you are a living, breathing 401k. And wait, so Kathy, listen, I don't have any questions from anybody, but you did an amazing job. And I really want to thank you. Is there anything you want to leave anybody with, final words?
No, I appreciate it. Just so for everyone to know, I'm like this regular person that's done some crazy things, like going to college way late in life. There was no reason to do it, but I did it because I wanted to learn something. And what I learned was that you don't have to be an entrepreneur, that they're out there, that you just have to research and find them. And that's what I did. And, it's one of the best decisions that I ever made. There's other things out there, I'm sure. For me, it was, you had to narrow it down. And when I narrowed it down and I got to printing, then, for me, I mean, I've looked into all of them. There's no question about it that this was the best choice for me. And when I talked to the other people around my area, I think some of them were disappointed they didn't make that choice too. So, but everyone's scared about making the choice. I mean, I'm glad that I was able to talk. I was glad that maybe I was helpful. I'm not used to doing this kind of stuff. I'm not good at doing this. In fact, when I started with the chamber and started like networking, I thought I have to talk in front of people. Like, I don't do that. Like, I sit back and listen and take notes, and I don't speak. And now once a month, I'm getting up and speaking in front of everybody in the chamber. And I'm so glad that I did it. I'm so glad.
Well, thank you again. And you did an amazing job. And
thank you.
We'll be in touch shortly after. to show our appreciation. And but thank you so much, Kathy, and thank you everybody for being on the call. If you missed a portion of it, within the next 24 hours, you will get a recording of this interview. So thank you again, and Kathy, thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.